I'd like to invite Tony Parr, a return speaker from last year, and Tony's going to chat to us about, since they were awarded their 50001 certification last year, the experience 1 year on. Over to you, Tony. Thanks.
That one there is forward. That's forward. That's forward. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Ronan again, as I thanked him this morning for giving me the dead shift speech in the afternoon. So there's always two things you can be rest assured of. A, that you're absolutely going to get out of here, and B, everyone else has covered most of my presentation, if not George as well. So thanks again for inviting me back. This time last year here at Bosch & Lomb, we received the ISO 50000 standard here. We were awarded the cert. So what I wanted to do was just very briefly go through that presentation again, but more in line with what we've done in the last year. So we'll switch on. So like I said, the aim, I want to give you an idea, the reason why Bosch & Lomb went down this route, and we won't dwell on that too much because a lot of speakers have, and really what happened and the achievements in 2013 and 2014. So hopefully at the end we want to show organisations of all sizes, regardless how many employees or what their profile is, the advantages of implementing this. Just to give you some background, because it's important in the context of what went on for our business in the last 12 months. Bosch & Lomb was founded originally in 1853 in Rochester, upstate New York. It's now headquartered in Montreal, Canada. We were acquired by a Canadian company called Valiant Pharmaceuticals last year. It was one of the first producers of the optical glass that was made in America. We developed the first groundbreaking sunglasses for the military in World War I, which eventually became the Wayfarer or the Aviator sunglasses that everyone would be well used to, because Bosch & Lomb developed the Ray-Ban brand many years ago before it was sold on. It created the lens used on the first cameras that orbited the Earth and took pictures of the moon. And in 1971 we introduced the first soft lens into the business and into the market. So it was, like I said, it was founded by two gentlemen called John Jacob and Henry Lomb, but it was one of the oldest established businesses in the US stock market up until last year, till we were acquired. At the time we were made up of three distinct sections here. You can see pharmaceutical and surgical. Vision care is where our plant sits in Waterford, and we'll come back to that in 1 second about the plant. So it's a fully FDA approved site. We do have a pharmaceutical wing of the business in Waterford, which is a much smaller element of the business, but our primary focus is on the development. As a lot of R&D activities take place in Waterford, but also the manufacture of soft lens contact lenses, daily disposable lenses. And just to talk to you a bit about, and we'll come over and back to this in the next few minutes. 2013 was a bit of an upheaval year for the plant. We started with the opportunity of building about 100,000 square foot manufacturing space onto the building. Within 6 months we went into the first stages of an IPO. About a month after that we were acquired by Valiant Pharmaceuticals. And then this year, then, as you might have heard it in the media, the plant went through a lot of upheaval in relation to closure. And it came down primarily to two things, right? One was the labour costs in Ireland, and the second one, in the context where we're here now, the energy costs. So thankfully the plant has come through that very favourably, but it's because we had some of the structures in place through pre-ISO 50000 and also the development of the plans going forward. We were able to establish that we can actively reduce our energy bills and become more efficient. So ultimately then it fed into the success of the plant being allowed to stay open. So just to give you an idea, again, we're fully ISO accredited. We're OSAS 18001 and also the ISO 14001. We also have CT PAT status, which is, some plants here would have the same, which allows us to export directly into the US market. And prior to the acquisition, we were the first plant in Bosch & Lomb worldwide to become ISO 50001. Now we're the biggest manufacturing site in the Valiant world, so we still hold that accreditation, which is a good thing for the business, right? So just to give you a look at some site statistics, about 22-acre site, 370,000 square foot on the roof. Operation in Waterford since 1980. About 6 years ago we employed 1,900 people. With the last restructuring we're down to about 1,000 people, so it's still a fairly big site. Just to give you an idea on the per annum electrical kilowatt hour usage, about 34 million kilowatt hours on the electrical side, and in excess about 20 million on the gas on the thermal side. So the scope of our accreditation just covers electricity and thermal. To give you an idea as well on the tonnage, because obviously it runs up costs for us, we produce and we process about 2,600 tonnes of high-grade waste a year, which is polypropylene waste, which we also put onto the market for sale. Water usage, about 170,000 cubic metres. So at the end of that, excluding the water, we're spending in excess of about €5 million a year on energy. So it would put us under the definition of a large energy user. So obviously a lot of speakers have spoken the reason why we did this, right? Primarily what we wanted to do was to develop a system, right? There was a lot of data there. We have a very strong facilities team, very small facilities team, very committed, who had brought in a BMS system in conjunction with partners here, Cyrus, as well as an EMS system. And what we wanted to do was take all that knowledge and put it into a structured position that we can embed it like we would with, say, business continuity planning or manufacturing or EHS systems into the whole management structure of the site. And we found that that was the real driver in how to do this. So, because the facilities team would have been working away with very large budgets, and like any manufacturing plant, they might say, well, that's someone else's budget, it's not really anything to do with me. And we wanted to change that whole perception. So that was why we did it. So what we wanted then, like I said, was this whole integrated thinking on how to become more energy efficient, right? And what we did find, and I'll come back to it in a minute, some of the functional managers, like I said, they tend to operate in their own little silos and they just think about numbers out the door, but they don't understand, or they don't want to understand, about the amount of energy it takes to get the product basically onto a truck at the back of the site and out. So the link to energy management. We set out a mechanism of how energy management will be integrated into the business, which was a key driver from the start. Already, and some speakers have alluded to this, we did have our standards in place, so the fundamental structures were there for management reviews, training matrices, setting up goal planning. But the one was to come up with was to set up realistic KPIs for the site from an energy management point of view. And the ultimate sale pitch for me with the energy team and facilities was to the plant manager is that we had to reduce cost. And obviously that came evident last year, which was one of our key drivers of what happened around June, right? So just to give you an idea, and I think some people said, well, how would you look at KPIs? We set one very simply for manufacturing output. So we linked kilowatt hour usage, both on the thermal side and the electrical side, to the amount of units going out the door. Now obviously that's helped by volume, but what it also drives in the process is that you've got to make good product first. So it brings in all your quality systems to do that as well. It'll also reduce your waste. So we're down now to a level where we believe we're at a kilowatt hour per unit rate that we can sustain. So to give you an idea, our goal for this year, was to reduce by about 5% our kilowatt usage per unit. We got that down to about 0.078 kilowatt hours per lens, right? So our lens production is in the multi-millions, so that'll give you an idea of where our kilowatt hour usage. 2012 it was 0.13, 2013 was 0.09. So volume hasn't changed, but what you're seeing is a distinct drop in the amount of kilowatts being used to generate the same volume. So that'll give you an idea or an indicator that things are working, right? So the goal, coupled with two others, we want for carbon reduction as a percentage again of the unit rate, and also on the waste per unit, it's embedded into they're the three KPIs for the site. And what we did was to work with the management team to say that's what we want to get to, and we need all the resources that we need to get down there, because ultimately it'll mean cost reduction. So just to give you an idea, this is a standard format, as you all know, from a Register of Opportunities. But what we did was we didn't put everything in here. We do have a suggestion scheme within the site for people who would, you know, say that we should look at this, this and this. This is more on a higher level, and we work out this on a quarterly basis between my department and EHS with the facilities department. And I'll give you an example of one of these that we went through in the next couple of slides. So what we did on a very small project about 2-3 years ago, sat down and said, look, this is a realistic opportunity we can do. We registered on the register, got the necessary resources. Very small amount of capital, about 15k. The gentleman this morning alluded to LED lighting. I think I found your solution for you if you're still here, right? We had an annual running cost in one of our logistics centres of about €2,500, right? Maintenance of about 1,000. The payback year on this was about 3.7 years. The actual kilowatt hours we were using was that beforehand, and afterwards we got it down to about 12,000. And a saving of about 10%, right? So it reduced the payback back to 2 years and 11 months. Now that's relatively small in the scheme of things, but what it gave us was the opportunity to get some proven technology in and then go on to phase 2 of the project, right? So phase 2 of the project, it was 1,600 fittings in all non-manufacturing areas, 250 fittings externally, capital outlay in excess upwards about €500,000. But we couldn't have done that unless we had shown some structured planning and some structured results prior, right? And this was including installation. We were projecting at about €138,000 savings a year, with a return on investment of 3.4. In the heat of the hunt, it came down. We got it down to about 2.9. And some of the positives came out of this was that we done all our in-house lighting design ourselves in cooperation with a vendor that we selected. We reduced the energy by 60%, but increased the look levels by about 15%. So we were actually able to take out fittings as well. So for every 3 fittings we had before, we got it down to 2, and then we're able to increase the lux levels. Now that's important from our point of view in non-manufacturing. The next phase of this, which is going to be another large capital investment, is into the manufacturing areas, because a lot of our platform is very sensitive to vision systems, so we have to be very cognitive of glare and different type of lighting effects. So it's a proven technology, and obviously if we go back and put our neck on the line and say, look, I need the bones of €500,000 to do this, from my point of view I better be able to deliver the results, right? So it did work. Like I said, phase 3 is manufacturing. And I'll just give you an idea of the lighting before and after in our canteen areas, non-manufacturing facility spaces and the car parking. The lighting levels just went absolutely to the optimum level we could get on lux levels with a huge energy saving as well. So just probably to finish off on a few things, and I always kind of use this, I used this slide last year, was this whole thing of behavioural management. Now, I never use the word culture, right? It's a whole different thing, right? But I always try to change the guys' behaviour in the site and how they deal with whether it's environmental health and safety or energy management. And we had a huge amount of these on the top, all the antecedents, all the notices, turn off the lights, blah, 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 ramp down your chillers, all this kind of stuff. But in general term, like what we found was it doesn't really work unless there's a consequence. And if there's a consequence there for the production managers and all the way down to team leads, then ultimately the behaviours will change, right? So the antecedents at the top are only as powerful as the consequences. That's important. That's a common thing, right? And it's an important point to remember. Because pre-50,001, we had lots of this, loads of SOPs, loads of signs, loads of this, that and the other. Someone else's problem was the main behaviour because the budget centres and the cost centres sat with a different department. The antecedents were ignored, and that's a common thing as well, right? And there was no real felt consequences to the people who were energy users, whether in the positive or negative side. And obviously the knock-on effect then was increased energy usage. So we did see that over the last 4 to 5 years. But what we did post this then was we did have the same level of antecedents, but we include now live monitoring usage and communication. So we have about 100 sub-meters installed in the plant, about 90 on the electrical, and about 10 on the thermal side. And we give live feeds back to production on where our energy is being used. We have a 24 hours, 7 days a week operation, so the profile, the energy profile is fairly constant. So all shifts at any given time can see where our energy is being utilised. The behaviour, it's an ongoing programme conducted by facilities understood by everybody. And like I said, it's this whole structured visibility, right? And what we also do is we set goals and objectives, and we start moving the costs back into the cost centres. So even though you're using it, or you're going to have visibility on where your cost centre sits. So we have an overall budget, and then each manufacturing area will be responsible for the cost of the energy they're producing. And you will see patterns across shifts. Different people do things differently. Or, you know, quality mightn't be as good on one shift as it is in another, so you'll see a knock-on effect with cost and waste. And to finish then, just the road ahead. I did this last year, and what brought us to the accreditation as a standard, to just give you an overview. We trended all our usage across the business units. We do that on an ongoing basis. A constant ongoing review of the SEUs that we have. The energy review document, again, to ID our energy use and forecast. We can accurately now, based on the level of data we have, forecast our energy usage out into the end of next year. Plant goals, again, aligned with the operating plan, and we have about 8 key factors in the plant that drive the whole performance of the site. Energy is one of those, safety being the other is process excellence and such like, so it's well up there and embedded in the day-to-day. And the next step then is we're targeting opportunities that gives us the maximum output, right? So at the minute we're in the phase 3 of the energy saving project, and we're in tender review stage now for a CHP plant that we would hope to have online in 2016, which is going to significantly reduce our energy usage across the site as well. So that'll give you an idea where our thought process is going. A large capital investment, and again, you couldn't do it unless you had a structured plan, and 50,001 gives you that plan to do that. Okay, that's the end. Any questions?
We'll take the questions in a group, but thank you very much, Tony.